I guess I should start this off by saying I'm creating this audio in case I go missing or end up dead. Either way, it will not be a surprise to me. This all started a few weeks ago, and at this point I'm not sure how to proceed. My family consists of my parents, me, my older sister, and our dog that we've had since my sister was a little girl. Our dog Jack has always adored my family, myself included. But as of a few weeks ago, he won't even go near them, let alone come into the house while they're home. He just stands there, cowering in fear, and sometimes barks at them. He's also become incredibly protective of me. If one of my family members tries to touch me or gets too close, he's right there, ready to bite. I understand why he's scared though. I think if the situation was different, I would be too. But even as I create this audio, I feel very at ease. About 3 weeks ago, my parents and my sister left to attend one of her many band concerts while I stayed home and did chores. This is how it had always been. I didn't really care to go to a concert, so I was fine with getting the house to myself for a few hours. They left around 6 p.m. and told me they would be home by 10. The hours went by relatively quickly as I completed my chores, but eventually I got the last hour and a half to just relax. 10 o'clock rolled on by and they weren't home yet. No big deal. They probably just stopped for takeout somewhere, I initially thought. It hit around 11:30 and I was starting to get tired, but also increasingly concerned as to why my family wasn't back yet. That wasn't like them. They would always come home on time. I sat myself down in the living room with Jack, hoping that they would walk through the door any second. I kept him close to me, close enough to hear his ragged breathing. I had the TV going and a few lights on to keep myself awake, although my anxiety had been doing a good job of that. After about 30 more minutes of my ever-increasing anxiety, I felt eyes piercing my back. Jack's eyes were glued to the window, peering out over the driveway, and honestly, I was freaked out. I glanced toward the window and saw nothing, so I tried to shrug it off, but I just couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or rather something, was out there. That's when the knocking started. There's no way my dad would have been careless enough to forget his house key, and even if that had been the case, I knew my sister had a spare. So, who would have been knocking on our front door that late at night? I hopped off the couch and tried to at least go toward the door to use the peephole. But Jack aggressively blocked my way. He just started going crazy, barking, pushing me away, anything he could do to keep me away from that door. Eventually, I gave in and decided to just head to bed. If they weren't back by the morning, I was going to call the police. That night, I didn't sleep very well. My dreams were plagued with night terrors and I kept waking up in a panic. Shadows moved in the corners of my room, and my door opened and closed by itself all night. But by far, the night were the worst. Strange creatures with piercing yellow eyes and mangled bodies were all I could see. Their burn-covered hands would reach out to me as they called my name with raspy voices. Whether they were trying to seek help from me or kill me, I didn't know. I woke myself up screaming several times, and each time, Jack was by my side. Each time I woke up, it felt like the temperature in the house had increased, leaving me drenched in my own sweat. I was scared. I didn't know what was happening to me or to my family. Eventually, I fell back asleep after the last night terror and dreamt of absolutely nothing. The next morning, I woke up groggy and anxious. Jack was no longer by my side, which made me hope that my parents had come home. The smell of fresh cooked bacon almost confirmed their presence for me, until I was reminded that my family was never the cook breakfast and eat it together type. In our house, it was always fend for yourself. My mother was a horrible cook, and my father refused to learn how. My eyes widened as my heart began to race. I flung myself out of bed and down the stairs as quickly as I could, which, in hindsight, doesn't sound like the best idea. Instead of being greeted with a home invader or a serial killer, I was greeted by my mother. My dad was sat at a small table in the kitchen, reading the morning paper, and my sister had been lazily walking down the steps after me. "Why are you in such a hurry, dumbass?" she asked as she ruffled my hair. Her crude words drew a frown out of my mom. "Riley, language," she said as my sister plopped down at the table next to my dad. "Dad says it all the time. Why can't I say it? Hey, Dad. Shit." My father, not even really paying attention to their banter, smiled and high-fived my sister before my exasperated mother went back to her bacon on the stove. "Are you just gonna stand there, or are you going to sit down?" my dad finally said. My attention was broken from them as I heard a loud thud against the patio door. Jack had rammed his entire body against the glass, seemingly trying to break through. My once sweet and friendly dog was going ballistic, just absolutely losing his mind. He kept ramming into the door until my father got up to open it. Jack's body language turned defensive as I stepped closer to see what was going on. "Stay back, everyone. Something's going on with Jack," my dad said in a low voice, trying not to provoke him. A warm grimace adorned his face at the sight of our dog. Jack's stance was low to the ground, and his growls were frequent. He was ready to attack at any given moment. My father just closed the blinds so he could no longer see us, in hopes he would calm himself down. And, for the time being, it seemed to work. As the week went on, each member of my family had tried to coax Jack back inside, but he vehemently refused. About 2 weeks into this crazy mess, I went outside with him to see if he was actually okay or not. My dad warned me and told me to be careful as he left for work that day. Eventually, my mom and sister left too, leaving me alone with our dog. Once everyone had gone, all signs of aggression within him faded. He seemed wasn't like his normal self. Well, almost. He kept rolling over an abnormally green patch of grass and whined. I laid there with him in hopes that he would calm down, but to no avail. At one point, he had even begun digging on that spot, and I had to forcibly drag him away. "Jack, what's gotten in?" I stopped my sentence short. My mouth hung open in shock from what I had found. There, staring up at me, was a single blue eye hanging down from its socket. Upon the discovery, Jack started barking again, but this time with no aggression. I let him dig a little further until I realized whose body was in our backyard. One by one, we uncovered the bodies of my now decaying family. Their bodies were mangled and covered in intense burns, just like the strange creatures from my dream the first night they hadn't come home. My mind and heart were racing. Who did this? Who had buried them without me noticing? All of those questions ran through my mind, and I suddenly felt very dizzy. I felt myself hit the grass next to what used to be my sister. I sat there with Jack whimpering next to me for about 10 minutes before I was able to compose myself. After a few more seconds, I sighed and stood up. I knew what I had to do. I ended up making my way to the shed, grabbing a shovel, and I began to bury the bodies once again. I was as careful as I could be, so it looked like no one had dug them up in the first place. The cover-up job looked a little janky, but I didn't care. All I hoped was that my family wouldn't be able to tell what had happened. You see, the reason I'm recording this audio is because I think my family has caught on to my little pretending act. I've known for about 2 weeks now. I think the worst part of it all is that I don't know how to tell them I know. I don't know who or what they are, and frankly, I don't care. My whole life, I have been neglected and left out by my abusive parents. I have even been sexually assaulted by some of my sister's friends because they were bored and all of my family just didn't care. Whoever has been impersonating my family for the past month treats me so much better. I'm included, no longer ridiculed or left to be the family's slave. Jack may not like or trust them, but really, who cares what that dog thinks? He liked my old family just fine. I like this new family much better. And so, I'm creating this audio to say, if I end up missing or dead, just know that it's okay. No need to come looking for me. I'll be fine with this family, regardless of if they decide to keep me around or not. I'm the happiest I've been in a while, so